February 16th. And by February 23rd, people felt INEC has 1 week to at least correct most of those issues. But still, there are many people who say the February 23rd presidential and National Assembly elections has, a lot of irregularities, especially with some polls reporting that INEC officials arrived late in their polling unit. We were speaking on the overview of the presidential and National Assembly elections. To help us have this conversation, we have a legal practitioner, Tunde Kolawole. Many thanks for joining us on the program.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Just to also inform our viewers that you can call in to make your contribution. But when you call in, please turn down the volume of your TV set. We say that all the time. Turn down the volume of your TV set. And also, you're not allowed to use foul language or cast aspersion on anyone. Just give your opinion without having to be insultive to anybody else. All right, Barrister Kolawole, you saw, you heard the announcement of the postponement of the elections on February 16th, and then election was eventually held on February 23rd. When you look at that election, was the postponement worth it?
Yes and no. When you look at the colossal waste of money that is attendant to that postponement of the election, and you look at the economic challenges that the country has been facing as a nation, you will want to say that we should have avoided the postponement that we saw in that election, because there was no way you would have postponed that election without billions of naira or dollar being lost to the economy. In fact, some people made the computation and said the quantum of loss to the GDP was almost about 3 or 5 billion naira for that one single day. You deployed the security men, you took material to certain places, you have to recall another, you program the card reader, and then you have to reprogram it, and all manners of things and all that. Taking cognizance of that, you want to say, look, we should have not have done the postponement, because if we have had about 3.5 years to prepare for this election, all those so-called logistics problems are things one could envisage and would have taken appropriate care of them. So to that extent, the postponement of the election wasn't a welcome thing at all. It was a disaster. But when you look at it from security perspective and all that, you want to say that maybe the postponement turned out to be a blessing in disguise, to the extent that the tension was just too much before that election. You could almost slice it with a razor blade. And if that election had gone on that Saturday and all that, maybe, probably, we would have had more mayhem than we had after the election. In spite of the postponement and all that, by the report that I read in some of the papers and all that, more than 44 persons were alleged to have lost their life to that election and all that. I mean, in other countries of the world, when elections are being conducted and all that, it's like a mini festival, a rally, a kind of a period of enjoyment and other, in which people will even go to their places of work, take their lunch break and walk to the nearby polling booth where they register and cast their vote and go back to their respective places of work. But in our own circumstances and all that, it became something like a war. Those of us who live around Lagos, you saw what happened in Okota, you saw what happened in some parts of Lagos, you saw what happened in some parts of Mushi and some of these other places. For God's sake, these are things, after 20 years of this democracy and all that, you would think should have been receding to the power. We shouldn't be having that kind of a thing again. So if we look at the security challenges that we faced before the postponement of the elections and all that, we could say, well, maybe it's a blessing in God, to the extent that it has helped to calm down frayed nerves, and it has probably reduced the kind of violence, the quantum of violence that would have witnessed that election if it had not been postponed. That is the reason why I want to say yes and no. It became a blessing in disguise.
In terms of the conduct of the election, how would you say INEC fared?
Yeah, I am still not comfortable with the conduct of the postponed election. I mean, the logistic problem that they cited for postponing the first election also reared their ugly heads in the second election. In the place where I voted, for example, and all that, the card reader could not read my thumbprints and all that. And this is a place I've been voting since 1999 and all that. So if in 2015 the cathedral malfunctioned and another. One would have expected that INEC would have worked on the cathedral in terms of maybe upgrading it to a more quality, more sensitive cathedral that could easily recognize and pick people's finger and all that. All the malfunctioning that we saw with it and another, we thought maybe that would have receded into the past. It could also be that the cathedrals are also tied to the performance of the GSM operators in the country. And if that had been the case and another, we would have also expected that the INEC people would have liaised with the GSM operators and other in terms of transmission, in terms of the data, in terms of reception that should go with those cathedrals. And you would have worked with them and other, upgrade the quantity, the quality, and then performance of that cathedral, so that the kind of performance that we saw there wouldn't have been there. Of course, too, we also saw pockets of violence in some of the places that I mentioned and other. And you and I do know the soldiers were deployed, the civil defense were deployed, the police were deployed, the road safety were deployed. We had an armada of security forces that were there to really police these elections and whatever. So if we have that kind of array of security people policing the elections and all that, the pocket of security that we saw in some of those places and all that ought not to have been there at all. You could almost envisage, or like the police people told us before the election, that they knew where the flashpoints are, they knew the black spot, they knew where they were expecting problems and all that. So why haven't they mapped out strategy and tactics to really contain the kind of ugly scenes that we saw in those places and all that? So we wouldn't have seen them. Yeah, but that is a minus for, yeah.
With the issues of reported violence, I mean, we saw the Okota issue, there was violence in Rivers, Anambra, and some other states. With that point you just made, do you think that the police really know the flashpoints, or they just actually ignored those flashpoints?
I think the police know the flashpoints. In fairness, you see, the kind of people we have in the security forces today, whether it's the police, whether it's the army, whether it's the navy, whether it's the civil defense and all that, most of them are well-educated people. They are thoroughbred people. I give, for example, the police. Most of the people you find at the top echelon of the Nigerian police today are lawyers. Some of them have PhD. Some of them have PhD in criminology. Some of them have PhD in crisis management. And all that. And you also go to the army, you go to the civil defense, you go to some of the places, they are well-educated. They are also Nigerians who are adults, who have been participating in this election maybe since 1999 or thereabout. So we could not say that they are ignorant of where some of these crises are likely to come from. I suspect very strongly that the pocket of violence that we saw were sponsored by the Nigerian elites, by the Nigerian politicians. And this cut across the divide, especially the major political parties. All of them are responsible for sponsoring some of these things. I would want to say, with due respect to the security people and all that I suspect that in most of the places that we saw violence, that they turn a blind eye to those challenges. If they were on top of their game, if they were alert to their responsibilities and all that, if they hadn't turned a blind eye to some of those things, or they were not intimidated, because sometimes the security people could be intimidated with the kind of forces that they were going to confront. I give you an example where I voted. There was only one woman there, and she wasn't armed. Yes, there were soldiers who were some distance away, even though soldiers were not armed and all that. So even if there were breaches in the place where I voted and all that, the response time before the security could come in to quell these things and all that, a lot of time would have been wasted. Those marauders, those people who came to destroy the election would have done it and gotten away with it. I suspect that is what we saw in places like Okota and Rivers and what have you. And the average Nigerian so-called election monitors, human rights groups and all, and the opposition party are also to blame. They were apprehensive that the security people might be used to rig the elections and so most of them said, look, we don't want the soldiers around the polling booth. We don't want them in the vicinity of where the polls are and all that. We want a demilitarized election processes and all that. So when you have that kind of a thing, the security people have to pull back. So if there were crises, the response time, it's very, very slow, very, very long. They can't respond to the crisis as swiftly as the ordinary should have as a response. So the thing would have been that we should recognize that the soldiers are part and parcel of this Nigerian society. Like I said, they are also very, very educated people and a critical stakeholder. If there are reasons for us to deploy armed security men to certain places when elections are taking place. For God's sake, I think we should not shy away from that kind of a thing. There's too much loss of human life. 44 lives lost in one election when we are not at war. For God's sake, it's too much. So I have always said it time without number. I'm one of those persons who is not averse to the deployment of armed security men. Not at the polling booth, but very, very close to the polling booth, so that their response time will be faster.
There are some who say that they don't even want to see security agents with any sort of weapon at all, because they say they cite voter intimidation. Yeah. Because they say there's some you know, police officers or security agents who do not have control of themselves when they are holding guns. So for that reason, they shouldn't even have guns around polling units, whether within or around that vicinity. But when you talk about the loss of lives, doesn't that defeat that purpose?
It's in a way defeat it. I think it's a very delicate a balancing act. We have to balance the act or the challenges of putting weapons in the hand of certain security men who may be overzealous, who may not be comporting themselves very close to the polling booth. And we also have to be mindful that the responsibility of government and even of all citizens is to protect lives and property. My take would have been that the people who are the helms of affairs of the security forces and all that should be able to identify certain persons within their rank and file who are level-headed, who are in control of their minds and their brain, who could deploy to some of these sensitive areas and who will be able to comport themselves in such a manner as not to cause embarrassment or injuries and loss of life, or not to be trigger happy when they are very close to the polling booth. Look, let's be honest with ourselves in this country. Most times, in places where there has been electoral violence, or where even the security men have been have misbehaved and all that, it has always been at the instigation of the Nigerian elites and politicians. Wherever they have a stronghold, wherever they have power, wherever they have total control of the environment, and the people in those environments are not likely to vote for them, or they suspect that they might be outvoted, or the opposition party may win the election in such polling booths and all that. It is they who instigate the security men to do some of the ugly things that we see them do in some of these places. So a lot of appeal will be to the Nigerian politicians and really not to security people, in my humble opinion. I have been participating in elections since 1979, and the thing has always been the same thing, in which certain political parties will go and compromise the security people so as to be able to use them to do their biddings when elections have been conducted.
I will have to hold you off now. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll continue this conversation around security for the elections and politicians who involve in political thuggery. I will be right back. All right, welcome back, and many thanks for staying with us. We're still looking at the overview of the presidential and National Assembly elections. And we have Barrister Tunde Kolawole still with us, but joining us now is a political scientist, Nnamdi Abana. Many thanks for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
Just before you came, we were looking at the issues around security for the elections. But just before I ask you questions around that, I want to ask you what you think about the conduct of the election and if the postponement was worth it.
Well, for me, I don't think the postponement was worth it. Because when it was announced that the election was going to be postponed, one expected that INEC should have been able to cross their T's and dot their I's, you know. In other words, it was expected that everything ought to have been ready prior to the election. But unfortunately, the election day came and we saw what played out, the toggery, ballot box snatching, some printing of ballot papers, and some irregularities in certain polling units and areas. We also saw some core members being attacked. So generally, I would say that the election was fraught with violence and irregularities.
Okay, why, you just mentioned violence, and we're talking about that just before you came, and we talked about the fact that police officers were, or security agents are not allowed to have guns around the polling units because of some trigger-happy security agents, and then to avoid voter intimidation. But when you look at what happened, during the elections, people dying, polling units being burnt, do you think that law being made that, or that policy should be changed?
The question is, those affected polling centers, do they have the requisite police personnel to safeguard those areas? In one of the reports that I saw, the video, only one police officer was assigned to that polling unit. So when the thugs came, the policeman was incapacitated. He couldn't do anything. Over 12 thugs attacking a particular polling station to disrupt the election. They actually overturned the ballot boxes and set the ballot papers ablaze. We had just one policeman there. While in certain places, we had lots of security operatives in those areas. We saw them shooting. We saw some of them as in shooting live ammunition. So the question is, why the lopsided distribution of the members of the Nigerian police force? Why is it that in certain areas we have lots of police personnel, and in certain areas we have just one police station assigned to a polling booth or a polling station? Could it be that certain people that they have vested interest in certain areas? These are the questions that our security operatives should answer.
But do you think that, let me come to you, Barrister Kolawole, because he just said now that some people had, in some polling units, some people, you had police with guns, security agents with guns, but in some other, you just had one security agent without a gun. Do you think that was deliberate?
That's a very difficult question to answer, in the sense that except one knows the workings or the dynamics or the decision that informed deployment of armed security policemen to certain places, and then unarmed ones to some other places and all that, one may not be able to answer that question very accurately. But if we cast our mind back to what the Inspector General of Police and what most of the commissioners of police and the chief of the police have said, then we could hazard a guess as regards why that kind of a thing took place. They said they knew the black spot. They said they knew places that are prone to problems and war. It's not impossible that the armed policeman or the armed soldier that was deployed to certain places was informed by the research that they have done that this place is prone is a black spot, is prone to violence, is prone to some crisis and all that. Whereas some of those other places where unarmed policemen were deployed to Anora. It's an area that they don't think there might be a crisis. Let's take, for example, Okota. Before 9 elections in Okota have always been peaceful without any incidents and what have you. But I suspect that certain persons probably were not too happy with what happened in 2015, and they probably don't want a repeat of what of that incident in which their candidate was probably defeated in those areas, and so they took certain steps to really compromise the integrity of the elections in those places. But by and large, the security people will still be the one to blame, because I do remember the IG told us that even though they were not going to have armed security men in any of the polling booths and all, but they were going to be roving around the place. They would deploy policemen who will be doing around the clock patrol all over the places and all that. And the policemen who were going to be at the polling booths and all that were going to have a communication gadget with which they can communicate to those who have weapons to come to their aid when they are faced with challenges and whatever. But take the Okota again, for example, and all that. Some of the reports that I read and in the papers and all that was that when those thoughts came and all that, the policemen who were in that vicinity withdrew, and then some of them who were even close by the soldiers and all that turned a blind eye to the activities of these people who came to disrupt the election. They thought themselves to have first come in Kekemaru and all that, did their recce or their surveillance and all that. And when they knew the strength of the policemen that were in those places and then their own strength, they came back and reinforced, and then all that. The policemen were the police who were not armed, after we dropped. Okay. But what about the other ones who were armed, who were close by? What were they looking? Why didn't they intervene before the disruptions took place? And so
it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, the question that we need to also address is, did the members of the Nigerian police force compromise their duty? Were they influenced by certain political parties in the discharge of their responsibilities? Because it doesn't really add up that in areas where we have sufficient police officers, you have the preponderance of thuggery, ballot box snatching, and so on and so forth, just like he pointed out. In areas where we have sufficient police personnel, the thugs shouldn't even have the audacity to invade those areas and engage in electoral.
Even with police officers that are not armed. Let's not forget that most of the security agents were not armed.
What I'm saying is, when we have a certain number of policemen in certain areas, that should serve as a deterrent for the thugs to invade. Because all over the country, we have police stations within the vicinity. You know, the distance from the police station to most areas is quite very short. So they can always ask for reinforcement. For areas where the policemen failed to contain the situation, I think it has to do with the connivance of the police officers to disrupt elections.
So you think that, sorry to interrupt you, but you think that security agents are conniving with politicians to disrupt elections?
Definitely. It has happened before. This is not the first time. This is not the first time. Politicians can do and undo. They can influence the decisions of the law enforcement agents, you know, in carrying out such. Okay, we saw the video of a corps member that almost passed out. The law enforcement agents were there. They couldn't rescue her. It was a fellow corps member that had to lift her from the ground to take her to the right place where she'll be given attention. You know, but that is just by the way. The point I'm trying to make is that police officers also engage in electoral malpractice, especially when a certain candidate influences them. So it is possible, because like I said before, it doesn't add up that you have police officers, more than 8 of them in a particular vicinity, and then some thugs now invades the area, snatches the ballot box right in their presence, overturns it, and in some cases even burn the ballot papers. Such things shouldn't happen where we have the presence of the law enforcement agents. So it is very, very abnormal for such a thing to happen. And I think that there should be the policemen should be responsible for what happened in certain areas. The area commander, the commissioner of police should be able to tell Nigerians what actually went wrong. And what is very important about this whole issue is that Nigerians are engaging in what we call citizen reporting. Most of these incidents were covered by mobile phones. So the videos are everywhere. Some audio clips are everywhere. So these could be tendered as evidence to lend credence to the failure of the Nigerian police force to maintain law and order in certain areas where the election was conducted.
I will have to hold you up now. We have a call from Olalekon. Good morning. You're calling us from Surulere. Hello.
Hello.
Good morning. Welcome to SuperDAWN Weekend. Go ahead, we can hear you.
I want to sincerely say, fair election in this way. There has not been a fair election in this way. Anybody's view is cut by where the person comes from.
All right.
Traditional point.
The line is breaking. I would ask you to call us back. I can hardly hear you. Your line is breaking badly. We can't hear you. Please, Olalekon, call us back. Thank you. Please, we would like you to call up. I really want to get your opinion. Don't forget that our phone lines are still open. You can call in to make your contribution. But just before he called, you were saying something. But I want to go to Barrister Kolawole. Why is it that in 2019, this is our 5th election, 20 years, almost 20 years of our democracy, we still have politicians perpetrate electoral violence, and no one has ever been brought to book?
It's a culture of impunity. In this country, we have a culture of impunity. I have always told people, even if there were no electoral acts, the criminal law, the penal code, the constitution already provides punishment, sanctions for whoever may commit any crime when elections have been perpetrated. When you look at the nature of the crimes that are committed when elections have been conducted, they range from arson, burning of public property. They range from snatching of ballot boxes and destruction of public property. They range breach leading to conduct of breach of peace, and etc. All these things are amply provided for in our statute book, the criminal code, the penal codes, and all that. But you see, we have a culture of impunity in this country in which we have always found it very difficult to enforce our laws. Since 2019, since 1999, when we have been conducting this election, how many people have been taken to court for disrupting election, for snatching ballot boxes, for killing people when elections have been committed? It is not that the police don't make arrests. Immediately the police make arrests, and the politician will walk behind the line and get all those people freed. And then they go back to their stock in trade, waiting for the next elections to disrupt. So it is the political elites that we have to talk to in this country that, look, we can't continue like this as a people. If all of us commit ourselves to a free and fair election, the kind of thuggery, the kind of arson, the kind of stealing, burning, and conversion of public property that we see ought to be receding to the background after 20 years of a practicing democracy. But you see, because the reward system for politicians is very, very high, is very, very juicy. In fact, I don't know of any business that you can engage in this country today, maybe besides drug trafficking or bankering, that is going to give you the kind of reward that politicians take home at the end of every month. So long as it remains like that, we are going to continue to have this do-or-die approach to politics in which people want to win elections at all costs. Furthermore, the political will is also not there. Apart from the free political party.
All right, we'll have a call from Adebayo. Adebayo, good morning. Adebayo.
Good morning. Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for joining us on SuperDawN Weekend.
Yeah. I want to one contribution.
Go ahead.
To about election. Yeah, experience. We have a lot of food that came to the voting unit, nice ballot paper, and void out that party to vote. And nothing was done. Even like an example, I'm a soldier. Three jobs. Went ahead and make declaration of the party that doesn't. I hope.
Okay, Adebayo, sorry, okay, I think the line already went off. I got a bit of what you said. You talked about the issue of ballot box snatching and nothing being done about it. I think that's the most I got, but thank you so much for calling in. Barrister Kolawole, you were saying something for that.
Political will is one. You find that at most times the political will is never there on the part of either the people, the government at the center, that's at the federal level, or if the election is local, at the state or local government level. There is never a political will to really prosecute or punish those who compromise the integrity of the election. The other aspect is that you find out election compromises or rigging is not peculiar to any political party. Virtually all the political party, all the politicians engage in it, depending on the area of strength. Take for example this last local government election. The report we are getting from where even the YYP, the Young Progressive Political Party, won the senatorial elections and all that. The report we are getting is not palatable. That even in that place where the man condoned of the local government, where people were going to vote for him, and then the integrity of the election in one way or the other was compromised. So what I'm saying is this: if a crime becomes so prevalent, if everybody engages in it, it becomes very, very difficult to punish. I'll give you a good example. Do you know in the past, homosexuality was a high crime in most European and American and some of these other countries? But when the practice of homosexualism and lesbianism became so prevalent and all that, the society had no option other than to legalize it. We are almost reaching that point in this country.
Are you saying that we're getting to a point where thuggery is going to become
it has become part and parcel of our culture. It didn't start today. Go to the First Republic, it was there. You remember the Operation Wete in the Western Nigeria, in which people will identify their political opponent houses and send thugs there with gasoline to go and burn their houses. You remember people will go to the mortuary in the First Republic and go and carry people's dead body and go and dump it in front of their political opponent's house and then call in the police that their political opponent have killed person and they should be arrested and prosecuted. And then you go to the Second Republic. I remember very vividly, I was an undergraduate in University of Ibadan in 1983 when the election was conducted. And at the Fedeco, is it Fedeco they called it at that period of time, Collation Center in Ibadan. It is our highlights and politicians that have to put an end to all this nonsense.
Isn't it worrying for us as a country in terms of where we are headed in our electoral process that we still have politicians perpetrate this level of violence and nothing is done?
Yeah, it is quite unfortunate that our politicians, they've condescended to this level of political violence, electoral malpractice, in order not to overflog a dead horse. I think that what needs to be done is a change in orientation.
For who?
For all Nigerians, including the politicians. The Nigerian citizen and the politician, because it takes two to tango. The politician who induces the private citizen. So it takes two, both the politician and the citizens are involved in this. So I think that certain institutions that we have in Nigeria should come alive to their responsibilities. For instance, we have the Ministry of Information. They are the image-making body for the nation. It is expected that the National Orientation Agency should be able to marshal out some programs to change the mindset and the attitude of Nigerians towards election, towards the electoral process, you know, and that is where to start from. It has to do with the change of our values, our value system. By the time they start having programs that, you know, where people come around to condemn vote buying, ballot box snatching, and other electoral offenses, likewise other issues that are, you know, bugging the nation. By the time they kickstart it, other institutions in Nigeria and NGOs will take it to the next and higher level, such that when people try or attempt to carry out some of these electoral malpractices, a lot of Nigerians are going to frown at it, and a lot of people will stick out their neck to ensure that the right thing is done. But we are not seeing this. The National Orientation Agency seems to be a lame duck. In most cases, they seem to be an appendage to the government. In other words, they are not able to discharge their responsibilities as they should. But also, we shouldn't just rely on the National Orientation Agency. We should also rely on NGOs, pressure groups, the civil society. They should come out and educate Nigerians on the electoral system, on the voting system. We shouldn't just wait after 4 years, because what we actually have in Nigeria is a fire brigade approach. We don't really talk about having peaceful and transparent elections until the elections are around the corner. Okay, now the election has come. I mean, the presidential and the National Assembly has come and gone. By next week, Saturday, another election will hold, the gubernatorial. In fact, I heard someone wrote on his social media page that, oh, after the elections, we're going to have a BB Niger, you know, that will move the minds of Nigerians away from the politics of the day. And that is actually what happens. That one will come and go. Another issue will come up. Everybody will be laid back until 2022 to 23, when the election is around the corner. Everybody will wake up and engage in that fire brigade approach. It becomes a concentric cycle. But if we are determined to effect a change in our political and economic system, we have to start now. We don't have to sit on the fence. The civil society must be alive to their responsibilities. We have to take the message to the social media. We have to take it to the TV. We have to take it to the radio, such that it will become very offensive for someone to practically engage in electoral malpractice, even when they are being induced. It is quite unfortunate that in our level of political development, citizens are still being induced by politicians with bags of rice, onions, oil, and so on, just to influence their voting pattern. This has to stop. Nigerians should learn how to vote for candidates based on issues, based on manifestos, based on their agenda, not just to have an agenda, but there has to be a clear roadmap on how they are going to take Nigerians from poverty to prosperity. Okay. There has to be a roadmap. I've not seen issue-based campaign in this election. Both those contesting for presidential, governorship, National Assembly, and so on. They've not been able to articulate their points, you know, and, you know, sell it to Nigeria.
In terms of policies.
In terms of policies, nobody is talking about industrialization. Nobody is talking about tourism. Nobody is giving us a clear-cut blueprint on how to revamp the Nigerian economy. It is quite unfortunate. Nigerians are now traveling to different parts of the world. When I mean world, I mean Africa. A few weeks ago, I heard that Nigerians were deported from Ghana. For crying out loud, why should that happen? Why should Nigerian citizens be
I will have to cut in just because of our time. I want to come to Barrister Kolawole. We know that the election, I mean, we've seen the result of the election. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has already declared President Muhammadu Buhari the winner of that election with over 15 million votes against his closest rival, Atiku Abubakar, with over 11 votes, and the margin was over 3 million votes. But now there is pressure on Atiku not to go to court. He has said he wants to go to court, but there's so much pressure on him not to. We saw a report that women have marched to Abuja to ask him not to go to court. We heard from Olisa Agbakoba, we heard from Dele Momodu, the peace panel headed by Abdusalami and Kuka. I mean, why do you think there's so much pressure on Atiku at this moment not to go to court?
Well, my suspicion is that the system is already overheated with this election. It's already overheated. I suspect that some of the people who are trying to prevail on Atiku not to go to court and all that are trying to douse the tension that we already have in our hands. The second one is that when you look at the history of especially the presidential election petition tribunals and all that, hardly does any good result come out of it. At the end of the day, I will call to say there has been substantial compliance. And if there's substantial compliance, which is just about maybe 60% or 70% compliance, then they will affirm the election. So, whereas a lot of money, a lot of energy would have been dissipated. And when a man loses election, he also goes to tribunal and loses his money and all that, he becomes an embittered person. And so, the bitterness will continue to remain in his mind the next 4 years or thereabout. And that will continue to have ripple effects on the polity. Furthermore, the political party in power too, if the man goes to court and starts to challenge them and all that, they are never going to fold their hands. They will engage in reprisals. And Atiku is the man who has his hands in all the pies of the Nigerian economy. In the past, they had gone ahead to go into try to destabilize some of his businesses and all that. I remember there was a time Intel, one of his oil companies and all that, the government of the day, at that period in time, I don't know whether it's under Obasanjo and all that, went for that. So when you begin to have this kind of reprisals and all that, it might not all go well for the polity and the economy. The other one is that the economy is already in too much bad shape, such that if the man goes to the tribunal and all that, the government in power, the political party that have won the election and all that, will not have the requisites wherewithal to concentrate on governance. And if they don't have the wherewithal to concentrate on governance and all that, it is the polity and the economy that will suffer. These might be some of the issues that these people are trying to prevail on. Atiku are looking at that. They say, look, let bygone be bygone and all that. And again, too, there's also the primordial sentiment. All of them are Fulani, they are Muslim, they are coming from one part of the country and all that. And the culture over there is that, look, it is God that gives power and takes it away from people. If, for whatever reasons and all that, even if it is by rigging and all that, the man has succeeded in clinching the presidential ticket, why don't you let bygone be bygone? But for me as a lawyer, I am not comfortable with that pressure on Atiku not to go to election tribunal. As a lawyer that brings food to our table, I mean, as a lawyer, furthermore, it is going to enrich our jurisprudence. It is going to enrich our jurisprudence. A nation that lives in self-denial is never going to develop. We cannot be pretending like ostrich that things are normal, things are well done, when we do know that things are not properly done. So let Atiku go to court, whatever evidence he has is another, let him present it. You see, the polity will be the better for it. And then we all learn one lesson or the other, which will guide us against future elections. I have always told people, when you go and collect bribe these days, you are doing it at very, very high risk. There are certain things that people can put in their pocket that will record whatever transactions are taking place. There are even buttons that are attached to certain shirts and jackets and all that are capable of recording what you are doing. People could plant cameras in so many inauspicious places that will capture some of these things. And so when you go to compromise elections, you rig elections and all that, and you think you have gone away with it and all that, you may not have the last laugh. So the man say he has video recording of some of the things that are taking place. We have also seen some of the ugly incidents, like in the places I voted and all that. There were attempts to really frustrate certain people from going to cast their vote, because in that particular place is a minority party that has always been winning election there, and they don't want them to return to power this time around. So they scare some of their people away from the polling booth. They even go to some of their own very early in the morning, warning them that they won't want to see them near the ballot box to come and cast their vote. So I think if Atiku think he has sufficient evidence, so go to court, I think he should go. Lastly, I want to comment on what my brother has commented on and all that. This thuggery, let's be honest ourselves. Thuggery has become a profession in this country today, which is bringing food to the table of certain persons. And except with the issue of unemployment, I'm not too sure I think any able-bodied man who is gone to school or who has learned some skills or some trades willingly or willingly risk his life for these politicians if he's not suffering some adversity in terms of unemployment, in terms of not being able to put food on his table, in terms of not being able to pay his house rent. Some of these so-called talk, when you meet them, when you discuss with them, are very close quarters and all. I'm not too sure. All of them enjoy doing it. They are forced to do it because they have to put food on their table. And the politicians know their weaknesses. They know these are people who are now, because of frustration and depression, they are living on drugs. A little amount of money is enough to send them to go and kill a political opponent.
Because I don't want to deviate from the issue of the outcome of the election. So, I want to ask you, with people who say Atiku shouldn't go to court cite the issue around subversion of justice. They say that, look, if he goes to court, there is a tendency that he might not get justice. But we know that in the news we heard that he had played some of those video evidence for Abdulsalami and Akuka, who are the head of that peace panel. What would you say about him going to court or not going to court? What's his chance?
I think it will be defeatist for Atiku to give in to those suggestions that he shouldn't go to court because
sorry, we have a call. Emmanuel calling from Ikeja. Good morning, Emmanuel.
People not going to court. To me, I support him to go to court. By going to court, he will be clear within himself that he has fight this fight to the end, and he will be addressed. Even if the judge wrongly, his conscience will declare that he has tried. But when they prevent him from going to court, it will seem to him that he will fight this fight to the end. I don't know why they are afraid of going to court. Court is the legal place to settle matters. Even America today, Donald Trump is still facing Russian intervening in American election. Today, even the next election, even after 20 years' time, it's still in court. They are trying. So I support Atiku going to court. You understand? He has to go to court and challenge the election. It's his right. No one should stop him from going to court.
All right, thank you so much, Emmanuel.
That's my contribution.
All right, thank you so much. We're going to speak to that issue.
Yeah, I am of the opinion that that he should go to court. We are in the era of the rule of law and not the rule of man. I don't think it is right for anybody to deter him from exercising his right. I'll draw our attention to the past elections that we've had in Nigeria, in certain states. His running mate was once a governor of Anambra State, and twice he was removed as governor. He went to court.
That's Peter Obi.
Peter Obi. He went to court. He was able to defeat the governor as at then. After defeating the governor, he was sworn in. And something unprecedented happened. They started counting. His tenure actually began the day he was sworn in. That's why Anambra seems to have a different calendar from other states. Or in other states, the governors are sworn in on May 29, but that of Anambra is different. What if Peter Obi had that perception that the justice system is plagiarized, that he's not going to get justice? Probably or obviously he wouldn't have been the governor of Anambra State, and he wouldn't have risen or grown in his political career. So I think that the right thing to do is for not just Atiku, any aggrieved political aspirant that lost out, if they feel or if they felt that the process was compromised, they should go to court and seek redress. They should present their evidence and let the lawyers do their job. If at the end of the day they are able to prove their case, they will be sworn in
All right,
as
again,
governor or members
I have
of the
to put you on
House.
hold. We have Johnson calling from VI. Good morning, Johnson. Welcome to SuperDAWN Weekend. Hello, Johnson. Hello. We can't hear you. If you can hear us, Johnson, please speak up. But if you can't, we'll have to go so we can talk to our guests.
No.
All right. Good morning.
It's like I'm supposed to go to court because if I'm supposed to go to court, so that Nigeria is getting a session.
Johnson, please, can you speak up? Please speak up. Turn down the volume of your TV set and speak up. Hello? Okay.
I support to go to court.
Okay. All right. We got your points. At least you said you support him. I'm going to go. I mean, that's the most important point.
Exactly.
But you were saying just before that call.
Yeah, I was saying that Nigeria, here we don't have the rule of man, but the rule of law. We should follow the rule of law. Aggrieved politicians should go to court and prove their case. Because if you are telling them not to go to court, that means that they are going to vent. And venting might mean taking the laws, into their hands. Yes, the tension is high, but because the tension is high, we shouldn't tell him to throw in the towel. We shouldn't. He should go to court. No matter the amount of tension, by the time they spend time in court, the tension will come down, and the law will have its way. But it will be wrong to prevent anyone, irrespective of his political party, from going to court if they felt that the process was compromised. That's my take on this.
Okay, Barrister Kolawole, you mentioned issues around ethnicity, maybe because both of them, have the Fulani extraction, maybe that's what they're trying to settle them. Yeah. But do you think that if it was the other way around, that if it was President Muhammadu Buhari who didn't win this election, that he wouldn't have gone to court, bearing in mind that his antecedents shows that in 2011, 2007, and in 2003 he did go to court. So do you think that he would have listened to advice not to go to court?
I don't think so. I'm not too sure President Buhari would listen to anybody ask him not to go to court if he had lost elections. Just like you said, his antecedent is there. He has been to court about 3 times in the course of running for elections and all that. And if you also look at him as a person and his body language and all that, he's a very, very stubborn person. You also watch his utterances and all that. Before the elections were conducted and all that, maybe out of frustrations and all that, he said anybody come to snatch ballot boxes and all that should just be shot at sight and all that. These are not languages we respect from a sitting president who ought to be well guided in whatever utterances that he has made. In fact, I have reasonable suspicion that if he had lost these elections and all that, the country probably would have been on fire by now in terms of violence, protests, and whatever, because most of his followers are such. All
right, again, we have Adebayo calling from Wishing. Good morning, Adebayo.
Good morning, madam.
Good morning.
I want to make my own contribution to the interview.
Go ahead, we can hear you.
I am living an emotion.
Okay, go ahead.
What I experienced on election day, on the last election day, I was very somehow surprised. In the polling booth, in some polling units in Mushin, local government, these hooligans from parties, they invaded the polling units. They drive away the agents of other parties away. They started some printing by themselves. and started voiding other parties' votes and declared themselves a winner in that election. And nothing was done. Even the chairman of the local government in Mushin came out with hooligans and invaded all the polling units in.
All right, thank you so much, Adebayo. We got that
and
point.
They started doing rubbish. The soldier men came and killed 3 of these people and went away, and nothing was said about it till now. This is not a democracy. They don't allow people to vote for the party they wanted to vote for. This is rubbish.
Thank you so much, Adebayo, for calling in.
I think
we have to let you go because of our time. I'm sorry, we have to let you go. We got the story about your polling units. There were irregularities, and nothing was done about it. But as we begin to round up, I just wanted to answer this question. I know you're still speaking to the issue of Atiku, but the gubernatorial election is on Saturday. With this kind of reports, how do you see it playing out, and what should be done?
Honestly speaking, I suspect that even the governorship or the gubernatorial election is going to be fraught with more violence. I think because the stakes are higher, it's not a national thing. And virtually all the major political parties who are contesting this gubernatorial election have this do or die approach to these elections. So my appeal will be to the security people to be impartial, to live up to their responsibilities. They are only in the security because we have the Nigerian nation. If everything deteriorates, if the law and order breaks down, if Nigeria as a polity becomes like Rwanda and all that, and the security people too will no longer be there to when they are living and live in a peaceful society. They should remember their wives and children and all that are part and parcel of this society. They don't have weapons, they have to go to school, they have to go to market, they have to go to their working places. And a nation that is fraught with security challenges and all that, it's not safe for everybody, including those who are supposed to secure lives and property. So they should be impartial this coming Saturday when the gubernatorial election is to be conducted.
Let me also get your opinion as to what you think how you see this playing out for the gubernatorial election, and then what can be done so we don't have a repeat of what happened during the
for me, our politicians should be mindful of their utterances now that the gubernatorial election is around the corner. They shouldn't make inciting comments that, tends towards violence. They should actually encourage their people to come out and vote peacefully, no form of violence. They shouldn't also incite the law enforcement agents into, getting involved in the use of coercion to compel, to instill discipline on the citizens. So these are critical areas that our politicians that they need to look into. Then, for the citizens, for Nigerians, they should know that election is not a do or die affair. And you must realize that life has no duplicate. Those that are sponsoring thugs, their children, their words are not in the country. So don't allow yourself to be killed or to be harmed by any politician indirectly by inducing you with money or material resources. This is very, very important. It is very, very key. So on that day, I expect Nigerians to articulate their points. By now, they ought to have made their choices. On that day, you go out, be orderly, don't engage in any electoral malpractice, ensure that you cast your vote for the right candidate. Refuse financial or material inducement. Remember, those that you are voting in, they are going to spend 4 long years. So if they give you, let's even assume they give you 2 bags of rice, it may not be able to last for your family for 2 months. and you'll be back to square one. So on that day, refuse financial inducement, refuse any form of stomach infrastructure, go out there and vote for the candidate that has convinced you.
I'm sorry, I have to cut in because of our time. Thank you so much. We've been speaking with our legal practitioner, and our in-house analyst here, Barrister Tunde Kolawole. Many thanks for coming on the program. And also a political scientist, Nnamdi Abana. Thank you so much for coming on the program.
Thank you very much.
But that's the much we can take on the program today. You've been watching SuperDAWN here on SuperScreen. Many thanks to our viewers and our callers. Join us again on Monday when SuperDAWN continues. I am Precious Amayo. Many thanks for watching.